And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, sometimes I know a lot about the source material of a game that I'm playing. Other times I know next to nothing, so this is certainly one of those times. Today we're taking a look at Orphan Black, the card game. I know the general plot of the television show Orphan Black about the same actress is playing multiple clones of herself, and there's a big story behind that, conspiracies, etc. This game, though, as I've played it, you do not need to know the backstory behind that, which is good. This is a kind of a game where you're trying to guess what faction someone is secretly working for and trying to influence clones to join the faction of your choice. Here's how it plays. In this game, there are 3 different factions, and these are placed in the middle in kind of a triangular format. There's a scoring track, and whoever has the most points wins. As the game goes by, the different factions are going to be scoring as different people get swayed to their cause. At the beginning of the game, you're going to get a card. This card tells you what faction, so this card will tell me I'm the black faction. And also, I'm going to get extra points if these 3 particular people have been swayed to the black side at the end of the game. So there are multiple cards for the different sides. If you are an odd number out, if you have the only card for your side, then if there's more than one person at the end of the game, let's say there's a 5-player game, and at the end of the game, there's 2 people on this one. This gets cut in half, and this one also gets cut in half. And the one there's only 1 player for doesn't move at all. So essentially, you're not at a disadvantage for being the only person who is running one of the factions. So at the end of the game, your points that you score are going to start where your faction is. Then you're going to get points for if you've swayed these people over to your side, and you're also going to get points if you can figure out what other people's factions are. As the game goes by, each person has a set of cards, and at the end of your turn, you can put one of these cards on someone else's thing. And at the end of the game, I'd like to say, hey, you are the black. If I'm correct, I get 3 points. If I'm incorrect, this card goes away, and the next card in line moves up, and that one's wrong too. And we keep going till someone gets it correct, and then they get 3. Then the next person to get it correct gets 2, 1, 1. And then the most points is the winner. So let's talk about how the game itself plays. The game comes with several characters who are going to be the focus of this game. You're trying to get these characters to join different factions. Each character has a faction, that's the background color that they are kind of prone to. That's the faction they start in. So if I place Beth here at the beginning of the game, each player is going to place 1 character out. They're going to draw 2 cards from this deck. They're going to place those on each side of this character, 1 face up and 1 face down. Now, what you're trying to do as you place these characters out, and there's going to be different characters placed out. Sometimes there's more than 1 per side. Sometimes, one side has no one at all. So let's say these are starting in a 3-player game. These are the starting characters like this. Now, on your turn, the first thing that you can do, and this is optional, is if you have a special card in your hand, you can play that special card. For example, look in the opponent's hand and take 1 card. So you can do that. You don't have to. Then you play a card face down on the side of one of these. You can play it on either side, and you play that card face down. When you play that card face down, it's going to be a number. That's kind of how much influence they are to the faction that's to that side of them. You can even use these special cards. They just count as 0. Now, as players are placing these cards, they're going to check, is there 6 cards on the side of one person? So let's say this person has 4 on this side and 2 on this side. At that point, we reveal the cards. So they have a total of 6 on this side, which is the black. So they have 6 influence towards the black. And on this side, they have 4, 5. There's 5 influence going this way. So they're more prone to go to the black. However, we then will look at the number on that card. This is 1. That means the difference between those needs to be greater than 1. It was not. So they're going to stay in the faction that they started. So boom, like this. Now, had this been 8 to 3, that would have been a big difference than 1, and then they would have gone and been underneath the black. When that happens, you will draw another character card, place 2 cards to start with, and keep going. So again, on your turn, you have the option of playing a special card. You then play one card face down. When you do play the card face down next to one of these clones, it will tell you a special ability you get to do. So for example, if I play a card next to Cosma here, I get to look at 2 cards that are out here on the board. If I play one next to Beth, I can look at a card and move that card. Here I can flip 2 cards, face up and or face down. So each of them has a special ability. And so you're going to keep going until all the different clones are now underneath one of the different factions. When that happens, the game ends. We score like I told you earlier, and whoever has the most points is the winner. So you're going to be playing a special card. You have the option of playing one of these next to one of the clones on either side and doing that special ability. And then again, you can also try to guess what someone else is by putting a card in front of them. Most points wins. Okay, so you're probably going to have to go to a reviewer who's seen the TV show to tell you how thematic the game is. The game seems full of theme, but I don't really know how much it matches with the show. I'm here to tell you, is it a good game? Now, the quality of the cards and the components and all is okay, which is, honestly, at this point, typical of IDW. It's just not that great. The artwork and stuff is stills of the show, and it's fine, and the symbology is pretty simple. It's easy to tell the difference between the 3 factions and each player color and so on. And the card quality is really kind of, I thought, a little bit thin, but the game is playable. I do think the game plays well with different amounts of players, and it kind of fits into that genre of werewolf and resistance and who's on what, but it's more than that because there's a bit of tactical play here. I'm kind of a sucker for games that have this mechanism where you're putting down cards and there's a certain number on each side you're not sure. And what I thought interesting about this game is you are trying to sway the people to the different factions. You're trying to do so in a way that's not tremendously obvious because you don't want people to guess you. Because for each person who guesses you incorrectly, that's points for you. And that's not a bad thing. So I don't mind that. I mean, so you don't want to be too obvious. But at the same time, how do you play the cards? Many times you want the person to stay at the faction they're at. And so you're sitting there going, okay, so this side is, it looks like they have 5, and this side is 4, so I'm going to add. And the different numbers of the characters, sometimes the character is 0, which means it's really difficult for them to stay where they're at. But because if it's different where they stay where they're at, for example, here's a card, and you can see here that this is Beth. Now, Beth, it has a 0, which means it has to be exactly even on both sides or she's going to move. But she gives 2 points to her faction if she doesn't move. It shows 2 letters, while only 1 if she moves in one direction or the other. While somebody else who has a number 2, where it's going to be more difficult, the margin has to be greater than 2 for them to move, they will give more points if they actually do move. So you're trying to get all that. Sometimes you will actually move someone to the wrong faction just so people don't guess who you are. But for the most part, you're trying to get people to go to the faction you want. And at the same time, specifically 3 different of the clones that show up because you get more points for those if that happens. You do that, but there's also special cards and revealing, and you're watching other people play. So you're trying to figure out what faction everyone else is working for, which is not as obvious as it might seem. I thought that it would be, well, obviously, no. Because a lot of the cards are placed face down, you can look at cards and stuff, but sometimes people are kind of shackled by the cards that they have in their hand. Sometimes they are trying to do something. They're going to move this person over here to throw people off their scent, and because they don't really care about that person, or they think that it's going to look like they were trying to do that, and they're hoping you fight back, and the person ends up staying in the middle. There's a lot of that back and forth, and what are you doing in this game? The game is not that long. The box says 30 minutes. I would say 30 minutes is kind of a maximum for this game, unless people take a really long time on their turn. And you are doing the same thing over and over and over again, but I think that the game itself offers a unique experience that you don't find in many other games. So certainly check it out. I'm sure if you like Orphan Black, the comic book, and or TV show, you're going to enjoy that. But even if you don't care about this at all, it has this cool thing of trying to manipulate people to do what you want, or the cards to do what you want, and at the same time kind of stay in the background, almost an Illuminati style type thing. And it's an entertaining game. Orphan Black. Dice Tower Judgment approved.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door!
Yeah?